football Vikings portion of the proceedings here. Statements. Judd, why don't you lead us off over to Declan, and then I'll go third here for Vikings and football statements.
All right. After watching the two conference championship games, which were polar opposites on Sunday, I'm going to give you a statement that comes back to a thing I saw that made me think of the Vikings. And it's this. My statement is you want to be on the receiving end. And what I mean by that is, did you guys see, just as one example, what T. Higgins meant to the Bengals offense?
Yeah.
And the fact that opponents said, the Chiefs said, we're going to shut down Jamar Chase. And they didn't shut him down, but they definitely at times took him away. And Joe Burrow and the Bengals offensive coordinator said, okay, that's cool. T. Higgins is really good too. And I think Romo at one point talked about the fact that there was options to double them both. But you know what he never said? There was never an option to triple Jamar Chase because you wanted to double Higgins at times. The point is, this is the need for another receiver who is a very viable threat with Justin Jefferson. Doesn't need to be the same guy. Jefferson is all world, but the Vikings don't have this guy. The Vikings didn't have a guy where you said, okay, we've got Jefferson taken care of, but here's his Robin, and he's a damn problem too. Watching these teams roll out receivers that are potential big-time threats to me was a reminder of why the Vikings need to replace Thielen with a guy who is considered to be, if not as scary as Jefferson, because that's a big ask, at least a scary proposition that if you're going to take away Jefferson, you're going to pay a price.
Yeah. No, the Bengals, it makes it really hard. It definitely makes it really hard. And then the Niners in kind of a different way, too. I know they lost that game, and the Eagles have weapons everywhere, too. But so many of these teams, it's not just about, like 20 years ago, your quarterback is going to create weapons. Now it's like you've got equally good or better quarterbacks in the league, and they're putting these crazy weapons around them and schemes. And it just becomes really hard for defenses. So it should be a top priority, I agree, for the Vikings to find someone that can be dynamic, that's 23 years old instead of 33 years old down the field. Will they do that in the first round? I don't know. Declan?
My statement is, do not be afraid. So the 2017 Philadelphia Eagles, who kicked your butt in the NFC title game in Philly to go to the Super Bowl and then win the Super Bowl in your own barn a few weeks later, they stripped down that entire team the last 5 years pretty much. Look up and down that team. It is completely different. That's a team that won a Super Bowl 5 years ago. And they have completely turned over that roster. And here they are, knocking on the door of winning a second Super Bowl with a different coach, with a different quarterback, with different weapons. Hell, did you guys see how all the coin toss and the players that they brought back from that 2017 team as, honorary captains? Those guys are not old guys by any means. They won a Super Bowl 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And they came back to obviously, have the honorary captain stuff, but they stripped things down, still remained competitive too, by the way, right? They made it the wild card weekend last year. I know they lost to Tampa Bay, but here they are, back in the Super Bowl, not afraid to take some shots at quarterback, not afraid to move on from veteran players when they had to. I think there's a blueprint here. I think there's a blueprint here of looking at what the Philadelphia Eagles have just done in the last 5 years now on their second Super Bowl run here. And I think the Vikings can adopt some of these models as well.
Yeah, the Eagles are so fascinating. They did have the 2020 sort of implosion year where they fired the coach. Carson Wentz was kind of a train wreck behind the scenes, and they didn't really know what direction they were going. So they went 13-3 Super Bowl, and then 9-7 playoff losses with Wentz and Doug Peterson. So they were kind of they were hitting that glass ceiling. They already won the championship. And then they had the train wreck 4-11-1 season. But then, all right, new offensive-minded coach, new second-round quarterback, make a trade for A.J. Brown to boost up your weapons, and boom, it's like this is where there are some train wreck franchises that if you go into rebuild mode, you're probably screwed. Like the Houston Texans are poorly run. The Cleveland Browns for years had been poorly run. There's like the Cardinals. I don't know, man. They're going to go into a rebuild. I don't know if I trust it. They got kind of crazy front office situation. They recycle coaches, but some of these more stable franchises, and the Vikings are a stable franchise. Eagles, Steelers, even like the Giants. I don't think you have to worry as much about, oh boy, if you take your foot off the accelerator and take a deep breath here, you better watch out what you wish for. You might turn into the Lions. Like, based on what precedent would the Vikings turn into the Lions if they took a step back and said, okay, what do we have here for 2024, you know? And I think the Eagles as a franchise, the confidence to move off of Peterson and Wentz in the same breath in 2020, move into Sirianni, Jalen Hurts, get some new weapons, and here they are. Kind of incredible.
Dex was right too, though. I love the fact that if you go back and look, I guarantee you, the 2017 Vikings have more guys that are still on this team than Philly does from their Super Bowl team.
Wow.
I guarantee it, because like you think about it, Harrison Smith, Kendricks, Thielen, like there's a big list of guys, and you know what that comes down to, partially at least, ownership allowing the GM to do his job.
Yeah,
saying, you know what, we'll bring them back for the coin flip. We'll bring them back to stick them in the ring of bleeping honor, right?
Yeah.
But what we're not going to do is we're not going to try to run things back continually because we feel a loyalty. So it's a great point. I love that.
Another guy that they sort of did that to was Zach Ertz, right? Zach Ertz was 31 years old.
They got some for him.
Yeah, they traded him to the Cardinals, middle of last season or before last season?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what did they get for him? Let's see here. Oh, they got okay, so here it is. Here's my statement, okay?
Wow, an audible statement.
If the Philadelphia Eagles can trade 31-year-old Zach Ertz for a 5th-round pick, think what the Vikings can get for Dalvin Cook, Adam Thielen, Harrison Smith. There's a lot of guys on this team that you could get something of value for. This goes against Judd's thought from last week. You're like, there's no way they're going to get value for any of these guys. Dude, the Eagles got a 5th-round pick for washed-up Zach Ertz.
In season, I'm telling you, at the deadline next year. Now, I think Thielen's off the cliff. I think he gets you nothing. But that's what I'm saying is if you take Cook into next year, there might be a desperate team. I don't think in March because teams are evaluating their salary cap big time. They're trying to put together their team for next season with, high-profile players or draft picks. Yes, the Zach Ertz trade's brilliant in season, but it's also having the cojones to pull the trigger. I'm going to give you a prime example of a guy who should have been traded at the exact same type of time. Kyle Rudolph. He was clearly descending, but he could have helped the team. But no, the Vikings signed him to an extension. We got to be loyal to Kyle. No, you don't. But he's from, but he's made a home here. He's great in the community. If I hear one more guy is great, you know what? To quote Royce, what being great in the community is winning games. I don't care.
Those guys
what
can
else
still
you
be
do.
great in the community.
Sure.
It's like Chad Greenway is great in the community.
Yes.
Ben Lieber is great in the community, right? Like you don't have to play for the Vikings to be great in the community.
Well, yes, but I'm so sick of, we built a home here and now, no, you don't get to stay here in perpetuity, and we're going to maximize your ass on the trade market and trade you. So yes, the Zach Ertz though is a great, I believe, in season type of trade because the Cardinals were desperate.
Dude, how about this? So Zach Ertz,
love that.
Early in his career, he averaged 8 yards per target. By the end, he was averaging with Philadelphia 4.5 yards per target. And some of that was also like their quarterback situation in 2020 was tenuous. Jalen Hurts, I think, was new at the time. I don't remember. But they said, oh boy, this is he's on the wrong side of 30. And you might think, well, a 5th-round pick, what are you really going to get? Well, the Vikings drafted Stephon Diggs in the 5th round.
Oh, yeah.
They drafted Danielle Hunter in the 3rd round. Kirk Cousins was a 4th-round pick. Kirk Cousins. Saturday
picks are very useful.
Yeah, I mean, these are starting players that pop out of these picks. So what would you rather do? Continue to ride the same cavalry off the cliff, or get a bundle of 3rd, 4th, 5th round picks for some of these guys? It's just all right, Judd.
All right, warning. This might be triggering Vikings fans.
Oh, no.
Warning. This might be triggering. If you are triggered by past NFC Championship game failures, well, you're not going to like this one, because my statement is this. Favre should have done the same.
Oh,
Favre should have done the same.
oh man.
Here we go.
Okay, I take you back.
Oh boy.
January 2010, 2009 NFC title game against the Saints at the Superdome. It's getting late. And the Vikings are facing a 3rd and 15. They're on the Saints 38. Okay. Did you all see yesterday Pat Mahomes playing on a high ankle sprain? And as bad as Favre was banged up and his leg was a complete mess, a high ankle sprain is about the worst thing that you can try to play through. Okay. So like Patrick Mahomes, if you saw him when play was stopped, was skipping around like a school kid because he couldn't really walk normally. But nonetheless, he elected to scramble for 5 yards on 3rd and 4 from the Bengals 47 with a high ankle sprain. And then he got hit out of bounds, and that set up what turned out to be pretty much a chip shot for Butker to win the game. But here's where the parallel
picking at old scabs.
Here's where the parallel exists.
Old scabs.
So Brett Favre, you go back and watch that, and one thing, there's two things. Berrien's open, or there's room to just hobble forward, which is essentially what Mahomes tried to do, okay? That then sets up a field goal attempt. So Favre would, just to be clear, Favre would not have gotten the first down. I don't expect that, okay? But he could have got enough yards to set up a realistic end-of-the-game field goal attempt for Longwell. It wasn't first down. It was field goal position. If he gets 5 yards, let's say he gets 5 yards, that's 50 yards, to which Longwell said, it's indoors. I could have easily made that. What might have been, because we've always said, the one thing I've always heard is this, well, Favre couldn't run. What was he supposed to do? How was he supposed to? There's always, with everyone in this town, there's always, what's he supposed to do? Well, what's he supposed to do? He couldn't run. Patrick Mahomes, with a high ankle sprain, did what he had to do. The Vikings are in the Super Bowl. If Brett could have got 5 or 6 yards,
it's very tricky for me right now.
Brett screwed Brett.
Brett screwed Brett. Yeah, that's a lot of parallels there. A lot of parallels. Super Bowl on the line, hobbled ankle, quarterback has options. One of them is to run. There were numerous holding penalties. I'm going to jump in line real quick here, Dex, because I just want to say, I know people are, oh, that poor guy, that Joseph Osai, and he was crying on the bench, and oh, his teammates were consoling him, and then his teammate was being mean to him in the hallway. You know what? Here's my statement. I side with Joseph Osai's angry linebacker teammate. That was one of the dumbest, most boneheaded, you could see it from a million miles away penalties that you'll ever see in a conference championship game. What are you doing, guy? And yeah, like, should he get hate mail and death threats? Like, no, I'm not wishing that upon him, but you should feel bad and cry for at least 15 or 20 minutes after costing your team likely a shot to keep that game going into a Super Bowl. Now, they would have lined up probably for like a 55-yard field goal is my guess, instead of a 40-yard field goal. And maybe they make it anyways.
Yep.
Because, I think it would have been a 55-yard field goal.
59.
But, here, we're so quick now to rush to like, oh, he needs some support from his teammates, and he needs to, you know what he needs? He needs to feel like garbage for 72 hours. And then maybe, okay, all right, do you understand what you just did there? You cost us all a chance at a Super Bowl there. You might have taken a ring off Joey Burrow's finger by being an idiot and shoving Patrick Mahomes 5 yards out of bounds. Again, I don't want him to get death threats, but he should feel
sounds
bad
like you're close
for
to
at least a couple days.
It sounds like you're close to a hater.
Yeah.
It would have been a 59-yard field goal attempt by Butker. 59.
Okay.
In Favre's case, it would have been about a 50 for Longwell.
Yeah. So, yeah, Joseph Osai, hope you feel bad for a couple days. And then I hope you bounce back and have a great rest of your career.
Doesn't sound like you want him to.
I hope you feel bad for a couple days.
It sounds like you want him in the XFL.
The XFL. All right, Declan's next statement is presented by our friends at Finch Home Solutions, helping bumbling guys like us around our home.
That's exactly right, Phil. And guess what? Finch is coming to my house on Wednesday because my friend Cody is going to take care of a bunch of problems. Lights out downstairs, flickering. Didn't know why. Guess what? That's a bad thing. Cody's going to fix that. They're going to install something as simple as 3-pronged outlets. Finch takes care of anything, and right now they have same-day and emergency services available to help you at any hour. Finch also offering a free home safety inspection to all of our listeners. So be sure to tell them that you heard about Finch on SKOR North, because there are special deals for you. FinchHomeSolutions.com, or you can call them 612-357-2604. 612-357-2604. FinchHomeSolutions.com to take care of all those electrical problems that guys like us should go nowhere near. It's Cody's expertise.
All right. Next.
All right, my next statement. Also, this might be triggering. This might be triggering for some Vikings fans to hear.
Oh,
so
no,
I will,
you guys.
Here we go again.
Here
we go.
You guys.
So I'm going to expand something from Purple Daily today. I would pick up the phone, call the 49ers, and say, let's do a little bit of a swap here. Kyle, you love Kirk Cousins? Okay, let's orchestrate some type of deal here. Now, you don't have a lot of high draft picks, so this might get a little complicated. Maybe we have to settle on less of what we want draft-wise, but I want a quarterback in return. And I have no interest in trading for Trey Lance. I want to know the availability of Brock Purdy. That's what I would do. I want to know the availability of a guy who was playing lights-out football and probably had the Niners potentially on the door of going to the Super Bowl if he does not get hurt. I am much more interested in a guy in Brock Purdy, who was a 4-year starter at a Big 12 school, played lights out for the San Francisco 49ers team. And I would be much more curious on a guy, too, who's making chump change since he was Mr. Irrelevant, instead of having to figure out a first-round pick project who has been injured, has barely played football games. If we are so intrigued by the high-end talent of Trey Lance because he was a second overall pick, I get that. Can I present to you numerous first-round draft quarterbacks that just absolutely stink? Okay, so I know what I'm seeing in Brock Purdy. I am much more convinced that stock has much more ceiling and much more sustainability, I should say, than Trey Lance. I'm much more interested in a Brock Purdy swap than a Trey Lance swap.
Okay, but if you're right, then why would the 49ers ever trade Brock Purdy for Kirk Cousins then?
Correct, but if we're talking about them wanting to get Kirk Cousins, and if they indeed get Kirk Cousins, they have no use for Brock Purdy.
I think part of the appeal of Brock Purdy, if not the whole appeal, is that he makes no money and he's competent, right? If you think that he's something other than competent, which sounds like you're saying you think he's like has this massive ceiling, which maybe he does, then wouldn't the Niners, my premise for the trade is, you guys kind of know what Brock Purdy is, right? He's a good guy. He stepped in there. He's a 7th-round pick, and he did a good job in your system. But Kirk Cousins could do an even better job in your system.
And not get hurt.
Yeah, well, to this point, he hasn't got hurt.
I mean, when you're in your 4th quarterback, that's the.
Well, what do you think Brock Purdy? Do you think Brock Purdy is the future solution for the Vikings? What do you think he is?
I think he's a much bigger future solution than Trey Lance would be.
Wow, I love these takes that are being slung.
They are very, very hot. So, if that's the case, why did San Francisco allow him to go to the last pick? Why wouldn't you have taken a 5th-round flyer?
Because the draft is random. People stink. You miss on picks. That's what's going to happen. You're going to find some great picks in the later rounds. You're going to miss on picks in the early rounds. It's random. It's the draft.
I'm only willing to buy that to a certain point, because if he is as good as you think, he would have been a much earlier Saturday pick.
I don't think Romo was undrafted. Tom Brady was a 6th-round pick. I mean, Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, no, I mean it happens, but I'm just saying. I think that if you're San Francisco, what you want then is Kirk Cousins starting, Brock Purdy in the room, perhaps to be Kirk's successor, because Kirk's 35 and not Trey Lance.
Here's the thing. This is where I do side with Declan on the premise of this, in that it serves to benefit both teams. If you're the Niners, you love what Purdy gave you, but your team is ready to win a Super Bowl. The only thing missing is just a guy that can pull the freaking trigger and make the right passes and not be hurt. Right?
Just play. Yes.
Jimmy Garoppolo, hurt. Purdy now, hurt. Their backup quarterback to Purdy, hurt.
Yep.
If you could ask Kyle Shanahan today, what do you want? He would pound the table and say, just give me a top 12 starting quarterback that can stay on the freaking football field one time, please, so we can win a championship. And so that's what you would say to appeal to them, which is, you guys don't. You like what Purdy gave you, but how sure are you, gun to the head, your entire career on the line, would you rather have Purdy or Cousins quarterbacking your team 49ers next year? And I guarantee you Kyle Shanahan would say Kirk Cousins.
Now,
and from the Vikings' perspective, they could get off Cousins' contract, get into a guy that might help you for a couple of years in Purdy. Maybe you look for another quarterback, salary cap relief, etc., right?
the potential problem with Kirk, though, is the salary cap and the fact that, you had a defense that was lights out because you had the ability to sign guys too. So like, that's the thing, is the balancing act, assuming that Kirk would say, I still want, a 3-year guaranteed contract to accept this, the balancing act then of what takes place with the rest of your team. Because you did have the ability to trade for McCaffrey, to pay Debo and that. So that's the other thing, is the financial tightrope that Kirk would make you walk. And that's my thing with Kirk. I fully believe he will make you walk. It's more important to him to make you walk that tightrope than to sign like a 5-year contract at which you can play around with the cap consistently to do with what the Chiefs do with Mahomes or what the Patriots used to do with Tom Brady.
Well, and by the way, San Francisco, according to Over the Cap, has about $17 million in cap space. They would be on the hook for about $17 million of an unrestructured contract, which they would obviously look to do anyway. So they could absorb it if they wanted to. Just saying.
You want to take it so bad.
Yes, it makes sense for both teams. It really does.
I was very interested. It was a very good deep dive too on PD. Yeah. I've got one more for you.
Okay.
And that is this. My statement is this. I'm sick of officiating dominating conversations, especially in championship weekend. Okay. Now, there were some very questionable calls on Sunday, especially in the AFC game. And I've never thought that Ron Tolbert's particularly good, but I want to get to one in particular. All right. And this is the type of thing that just do your damn job correctly. So we can certainly talk about all of the arbitrary calls and, the PI where Gene Steratore, who was a former official, and these guys defend each other to the death, said, yeah, that really was. And he spun him a little bit, but not much. But let's just talk about the third down play that the Bengals had, that the Chiefs had. I think it was 3rd and 9, at which Torbert's crew got confused. They literally got confused and killed a play at the last second to give the Chiefs another opportunity. Now, I like both teams, so I didn't really have a stake of, the Bengals got screwed. I don't really care about that. But you could see them conversing before that play because the officials were confused. They put another second on the play clock. And then at the last second, right before the Bengals got a legit stop, KC didn't stop the play. Torbert's running in, trying to stop the play. Wait, we got to reset this and that.
Yeah,
why is it? It seems every Monday after the conference championship game, something's happened. There's been a brutally missed PI. There's been several calls that were just horse bleep. In this case, you killed the play. And I know it ultimately didn't impact things, but it certainly could have. And how can you not just do your job? Get this correct. It's the the AFC championship game. Get the damn situation correct. Do your job. You know what? If this is the Lions and the Jaguars in September, okay, we won't talk about it. But this is your biggest stage with, by the way, a marvelous football game and 2 quarterbacks who deserve praise up and down. 2 teams that are great. And this is what we got to put up with?
Yeah. Would you guys have called that 15-yard penalty on the linebacker, Joseph Asai?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But I wouldn't have called the PI that Steratore questioned was he barely grabbed the guy. That happens every play.
Yeah. I think because a lot of people were saying, former players even were saying, tweeting during the game, you can't call that 15-yard penalty. Well, there was another one, too, earlier in the game where, was it the Bengals center or something? Was kind of jumping up and down, taunting someone else?
The Chiefs offensive lineman. And he threw a flag on him.
Why are you calling that, for instance, in the AFC Championship game?
Exactly.
I think the 15-yard late hit was so egregious. It was clearly out of bounds. It wasn't bang bang. He was running behind him. It was just It's one thing if maybe they collide head on a couple yards out of bounds because like they couldn't get out of each other. He was trailing Mahomes and shoved him. But I did see some people saying bad situational officiating. There was a punt in the Eagles-Niners game that clearly hit the camera wire too.
Guide
It just
wire,
like went sideways out of bounds.
Yeah.
And everyone on the sidelines and the fans are like, it hit the wire. And the referees talked about it for 5 minutes. And he gets on the mic and he's like, we were unable to confirm that the ball hit the wire. We're not quite sure. Sorry for the delay. Yeah.
He's like, I apologize. In Philly, they're like, F you.
Like, dude, wait, there's how many officials are out there? Like 9 or something? No one saw that ball hit the wire? There's not a replay somewhere that showed? How about the camera? Can we show a replay from the camera? Did the camera wobble? If the ball hit the wire, the camera probably wobbled, right? Of course, we can't figure that out.
But that
yeah,
late
it was
game,
kind of a clown show of officiating.
That late game was such a marvelous. I mean, that was a great game in drama, and these guys they continue to screw it up. I'm so tired of that.
On a positive note, I will say, final statement for me: we get to watch Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow for like 10 years.
Oh my God!
Throw in a little Josh Allen, maybe throw in a little Justin Herbert at some point, but this is the Brady, Peyton Manning of this generation. And they're both young.
Yeah.
They're both going to be doing this for like 10 plus more seasons. So
and they're likable. They're both likable guys.
Yeah.
Burrow was great at the podium.
Dude, think about, and this is going to be triggering for some people. Okay.
Again, third time we've triggered.
Dude, when you have a quarterback like that, or a quarterback, and I think the Vikings have a long-term coach here. Quarterback is going to be 35 years old, but like when you have the head coach and the quarterback, the Zach Taylor and the Joe Burrow. Andy Reid's probably going to retire at some point, but the mastermind coach and the dude at quarterback, how that trickles into the rest of your team. It's no longer just about like, but the defense, but this. It's like when those two guys permeate that type of confidence and bravado on both of those AFC teams.
Yeah.
The rest of the team just tends to like elevate at times. It's just your right guard just plays better because Joe Burrow and Zach Taylor are instilling confidence. And I know that people are going to laugh at that because, are you blaming Kirk for Ed Ingram? No, I'm not. I'm just saying when you have a dude like, if you were to swap out Kirk for Joe Burrow, I think you'd be amazed at the things that would happen. Like Joe Burrow going over to his offensive line numerous times during a game and like pumping them up and doing his Joe Burrow thing. Like that stuff is infectious. Yeah. But now, you can send your emails
now you've crossed
to
the line.
jzolgad.
Now you've crossed the line. You're a hater. Damn hater. Yeah, you clowns find a way to always make it about Kirk. It's always Kirk's fault.
Well, I mean, it's not his fault, but he checked down on a play. Joe Burrow, by the way, threw a bleep it ball on 4th and 6 with the game on the line to Jamar Chase. Yeah. Underthrew it strategically, by the way. He was double covered, not open at all whatsoever.
Yeah.
And
I was told. I tweeted that, and I was immediately told, well, he had protection. He had time. I said he didn't have.
Justin Jefferson was 25 yards down the field.
He delivered but you got to deliver the ball. You got to deliver. Yeah, but then I got tweets about, well, what happened when Burrow was called for intentional grounding? You would have filleted Kirk for that.
Okay. I got Joe Burrow's playing in AFC Championship games every year. So is Patrick Mahomes.
Those two are incredible.
Yep. Anyhow, all right, that's a wrap on Mackey and Judd here. Purple Daily did a deep dive into. It was like a 50-minute dive into should the Vikings call the 49ers and have a Kirk Cousins trade conversation. So, again, if you're triggered by that, stay away. Rejoin us for tomorrow's proceedings on Purple Daily and Mackey and Judd. See you.